You might be surprised that famous people still don't think twice when they're on the internet, but it's true. 22-year-old NBA star Anthony Edwards, shooting guard for the Minnesota Timberwolves, got into trouble for his homophobic comments and is being fined $40,000. In this video, we'll be taking a look at Anthony Edwards' homophobic comments' consequences, so stay tuned. First off, Anthony Edwards in hot water for homophobic comments. Celebrities and sportsmen have a tendency to get into scandals. It doesn't help that because of their bulk of followers, their offensive comments hurt much more people than a random person would. Anthony Edwards is in a similar situation right now. The Minnesota Timberwolves guard is being highly criticized for the homophobic comments he made and has been fined by the NBA for them. Anthony did try his best to backpedal and apologize, but unfortunately, the damage has already been done, and even if his apology is genuine, he's lost his fans' trust. Meanwhile, Byron Spruill, the NBA president of league operations, announced that for the offensive and derogatory language he used on social media, the guard would be getting a $40,000 penalty. So where did this all start? Well, just the previous week, during an Instagram story, he used a homophobic comment to describe a group of men who were standing next to a building shirtless. The video he posted was filmed from a car's driver's seat with the windows rolled down. The 22-year-old apologized and admitted that there was no excuse for using the immature, hurtful, and disrespectful slur. He started a tweet saying how incredibly sorry he was, and wrote that what he had done was unacceptable for him or anybody else. There's absolutely no reason for using said language in such a hurtful way. He even said that he knew he'd been raised better than that. Next up, people were disappointed with the 2020 #1 pick, and he apologized. The league, at the very least, acknowledged that Edwards admitted his actions were inappropriate, but he was still fined because an apology just isn't enough. Anthony is a very good basketball player and has had a considerable impact in the NBA. This makes his ignorance all the worse. After all, the more people expect great things from you, the more you can disappoint. In the 2020 NBA draft, he was the #1 overall selection and has been with the Timberwolves for 2 years. In these 2 seasons, he's averaged about 20.3 points per game on 42.9% shooting. He also has 4.7 rebounds and 3.4 assists. Anthony isn't the first basketball player fined by the NBA for offensive comments. There are the likes of Rajon Rondo, Nikola Jokic, and even basketball legend Kobe Bryant. Kevin Durant is also part of the list. He was fined $50,000 after Michael Rappaport, a comedian, posted on social media a private exchange. It contained a number of personal insults, homophobic slurs, and profanity on Durant's side. He later apologized for it. Anthony's team, the Timberwolves, also mentioned how disappointed the whole franchise was at the language and actions displayed by their guard on social media. The president of Timberwolves basketball operations, Tim Connolly, said that the team has always been committed to being an inclusive organization and welcoming to everyone, so they apologized for the offense caused to so many people by someone from their franchise. Anthony did the opposite of everything they stood for, and hopefully after this, he'll learn how to respect all people regardless of everything. Thirdly, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has a lot to say about the young athlete's comments. To some, an apology and fine are enough. Maybe not to forgive, but at the very least to move on. But others aren't sure everything's been done and dealt with about now. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, for example, has some very strong words to speak about the situation, and while firm and maybe a bit harsh, what he said is definitely for the better. Kareem is a Hall of Famer and a Los Angeles Lakers legend. He's adamant that an apology isn't enough to make up for the damage the 22-year-old guard caused. According to him, Anthony will have to do much more to prove that he's really sorry for his words and make up for his mistake. He said that in another world, this could be just excused as the Timberwolves star being immature. He was really young after all. But there are just too many famous athletes on social media spouting racism, misogyny, and anti-LGBTQ comments and just getting away with it. This is once again damaging the image of the sports world. Back to the bullying jock types. But what's even more important than the eroding image is the harm it brings to the whole group in general. The more people that get away with this, the more the prejudice will increase against them. And because of this side effect, even if the apology was heartfelt, it wasn't enough. If he actually wants people to believe that he's actually regretting his comments, well, actions speak louder than words, and he should be doing some voluntary community service to show his support. Finally, a look at how the NBA could make a point with the Anthony Edwards case. Anthony is being fined by the NBA for making homophobic comments, but just how much will it affect him? The penalty may end up being a quarter of what he earns by playing one basketball game. Usually, when a star athlete embarrasses himself, his team, and his league, the response is usually to do damage control. The management puts out a statement or two, fines the athlete a certain amount, and then moves on as quickly as possible. In this case, the NBA could suspend him for a game if it wants to make a sharper point. For a player who will probably make $500 million in his career, any fine will not be of any consequence. On the other hand, a suspension would punish those in the Timberwolves organization, which had nothing to do with Edwards' comments. Perhaps the best way to deal with this situation is to educate Edwards, since bigotry is ignorance made evil, and education removes ignorance. Edwards has played with and worked with many gay people during his career. As punishment, they could ask him to meet every gay person employed by the Timberwolves and explain to them what he was thinking. He should converse with them and realize how damaging his statement was. Now, in other news. First off, the NBA might be changing the draft eligibility age back down to 18. The NBA's one-and-done rule is reportedly about to be done away with. The Athletic and Stadium Shams Karina reported the NBPA and NBA to move the draft eligibility age back down to 18 as part of a new collective bargaining agreement. This change could be implemented as soon as the NBA 2024 draft. Reportedly, both sides have positive momentum as they work toward a new agreement, but there is still work to be done. Adrian Wojnarowski made a tweet saying that several obstacles and complications remain, including the league's insistence that players provide medical info/physicals for all 30 teams. The players' agents want to keep leverage of picking and choosing teams that'll get full access to players' medical information, but those particular league/union conversations haven't begun yet and will be a part of the much bigger CBA discussions. Next up, unvaccinated players will soon be allowed to enter Canada after COVID restrictions. Soon, unvaccinated NBA players will be allowed to enter Canada to play the Toronto Raptors next season. Reports suggesting the Canadian federal government plans to drop the COVID-19 vaccine requirement by the 30th of September. Unvaccinated foreigners were prohibited from entering the country by this mandate. This includes unvaccinated NBA players who weren't allowed to enter Toronto to play the Raptors last season. For example, the Philadelphia 76ers guard Matisse Thybulle was barred from entering the country during Toronto's playoff series against Philadelphia. The policy change means that unvaccinated players like Thybulle, Kyrie Irving, and others will be allowed to compete at Scotiabank Arena. The players would be able to participate in Toronto's first preseason game of the year on the 2nd of October in Edmonton. The regular season for the Raptors is scheduled to tip off on the 19th of October against the Cavaliers. Finally, Phoenix Suns and Mercury owner Robert Sarver suspended for one season and fined $10 million. It was reported by ESPN last year that the owner of the Phoenix Suns and Phoenix Mercury, Robert Sarver, was cultivating an environment of racism and general harassment within his organization. This year-long league report regarding Sarver's tenure as owner of the Suns and Mercury was released on Tuesday. The report said that Sarver used racially insensitive language, engaged in inequitable conduct towards his female employees, made inflated comments and treated employees in aggressive and demeaning ways. As punishment for his actions, Sarver, who has been the owner of Suns and Mercury since 2004, was suspended from the NBA for a single season and was given a $10 million fine. This is the maximum amount allowed by the NBA. During the suspension, he isn't allowed in either team's business or basketball operations. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Anthony Edwards should receive a harsher punishment? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.